Love bombing. Imagine meeting someone who seems almost too perfect. They text you every morning. They stay up late just to talk to you. They remember your favorite food, your favorite song, and even the smallest details about your life. They compliment you constantly. They make you feel seen, special, important. After only a short time, they might even say, "I've never met anyone like you. You're my soulmate. I think we're meant to be together." At first, it feels amazing. Who wouldn't want to feel loved, appreciated, and understood? But sometimes what looks like intense love can actually be a way of creating a powerful emotional attachment very quickly. This is known as love bombing. Love bombing is when someone overwhelms another person with excessive affection, attention, compliments, gifts, or constant communication in a short period of time. The goal isn't always manipulation. Some people genuinely express affection very openly. The warning sign is what happens afterward. If that overwhelming affection suddenly disappears when you disagree, set a boundary, or stop giving them what they want, it may have been less about love and more about gaining influence. Real love grows with trust. It respects boundaries. It doesn't disappear the moment things become difficult. Love should make you feel secure, not dependent. And once that emotional attachment has been created, the promises can become even bigger. Future faking. They start talking about the future, not just next week, but years from now. They talk about traveling the world together, living together, getting married, and growing old together. They paint such a beautiful picture of the future that you start imagining it too. And that's when something changes. You're no longer attached only to the person. You're attached to the life you believe you're going to have with them. But then weeks turn into months, months turn into years, and somehow that future never arrives. Whenever you ask about it, there's another excuse. Soon. Just be patient. Everything will work out. You want to believe them because letting go of those promises means letting go of the future you've imagined. This is called future faking. Future faking is when someone repeatedly makes exciting promises about the future to keep another person emotionally invested, without consistently taking real steps toward those promises. Of course, plans can genuinely change. Life is unpredictable. One broken promise doesn't automatically mean manipulation. The warning sign is the pattern. Big promises, very little action, again and again and again. Healthy relationships aren't built on promises alone. They're built on actions that match those promises. Because it's easy to promise someone the world. What's difficult is actually building it. And when you've become emotionally invested in that future, something else can begin to change. You may start questioning your own reality. Gaslighting. Have you ever been completely certain that something happened, only for someone to tell you it never did? Imagine confronting someone because they said something that hurt you. Instead of apologizing, they look at you and say, "I never said that." You're confused because you clearly remember hearing those words. A few days later, it happens again. Then again. Soon they start saying things like, "You're imagining things. You're overreacting. You're too sensitive. Your memory isn't very good." At first, you trust yourself, but after hearing it over and over, you begin to wonder if they're right. You replay conversations in your head. You question your own memory. You stop saying, "I know what happened," and start saying, "Maybe I'm wrong." This is called gaslighting. Gaslighting is when someone repeatedly causes another person to doubt their own memory, perception, or understanding of events. It's not simply two people remembering something differently. The important part is the repeated pattern and the way it slowly damages your confidence in your own judgment. The more you doubt yourself, the easier it becomes for someone else to define what's real for you. And that's what makes gaslighting so powerful. But there's another tactic that's even more confusing, because instead of making you doubt what happened, it makes you chase the moments when everything feels good again. Intermittent reinforcement. Imagine someone who treats you like the most important person in the world one day. Then the next day, they barely acknowledge you. Sometimes they're incredibly kind. Sometimes they're cold. Sometimes they give you affection. And sometimes they suddenly pull it away. You don't know what changed, so you start thinking, maybe I did something wrong. Maybe if I try harder, maybe I can make things go back to the way they were. And then, just when you've almost given up, they become affectionate again. They apologize, they compliment you, they give you the attention you've been waiting for. For a moment, everything feels perfect, and you think, they're back. But then, the warmth disappears again. This is called intermittent reinforcement. It's when affection, attention, or approval is given unpredictably rather than consistently. Because you never know when the next good moment will come, you keep hoping for it. And that uncertainty can make the good moments feel even more valuable. Of course, people naturally have good days and bad days. Nobody can be happy and affectionate all the time. The warning sign is a repeated pattern where unpredictable affection keeps you constantly chasing someone's approval. Eventually, you may stop asking whether the relationship is making you happy. Instead, you start asking how you can get the good version of that person back. And once you're already feeling insecure, bringing another person into the situation can make everything even more confusing. Triangulation. Imagine you're already questioning where you stand with someone, and suddenly another person enters the picture. Maybe it's an ex, a friend, a coworker, or someone they've recently met. They start mentioning that person more often. They understand me better. They're always there for me. Why can't you be more like them? Sometimes they compare you directly. Other times they flirt with someone else just enough for you to notice. Not enough to openly admit what they're doing, but enough to make you wonder, am I not good enough? Are they going to replace me? Do I have to compete for their attention? This is called triangulation. Triangulation is when someone brings a third person into a relationship or conflict to create jealousy, insecurity, rivalry, or division. Of course, talking about friends, family, co-workers, or exes isn't automatically manipulation. The warning sign is when another person is repeatedly used as a tool to make you feel replaceable, to make you jealous, or to make you work harder for someone's approval. Instead of feeling like you're in a relationship, you start feeling like you're in a competition. And when you're busy competing for someone's attention, you may not notice what's happening right in front of you. Because the next step isn't always about another person. Sometimes it's about making you believe that everything going wrong is somehow your fault. Blame shifting. Have you ever tried to tell someone that they hurt you, only to somehow end up apologizing? You say, "What you did really hurt me." And instead of taking responsibility, they respond, "Well, you made me do it. If you hadn't done that, I wouldn't have reacted this way." Suddenly, the conversation isn't about what they did anymore. It's about what you supposedly did wrong. This is called blame shifting. Blame shifting is when someone avoids responsibility for their own actions by putting the blame onto someone else. Everyone makes mistakes, but when someone consistently refuses to take responsibility, and somehow every problem becomes your fault, that's when it becomes a pattern. You came looking for an explanation. Instead, you leave wondering if you're the problem, and that feeling can make the next tactic even more powerful. Guilt tripping. Imagine saying no to someone and immediately feeling like a terrible person. They might say, "After everything I've done for you," or "I guess you don't really care about me." Maybe even, "If you love me, you would do this." You were simply setting a boundary, but now you're feeling guilty for having one. This is guilt tripping. Guilt tripping is when someone uses guilt to pressure you into doing what they want. It's normal for people to feel disappointed when they hear no. The problem is when disappointment becomes a tool for control. Eventually, you stop asking, "What do I actually want?" and start asking, "How can I stop them from getting upset?" Healthy relationships allow you to say no without making you feel like you don't deserve to. Playing the victim. Imagine finally confronting someone about something they did. You're hurt. You explain exactly what happened, but instead of addressing it, they suddenly start talking about how they're the one who's suffering. "Nobody understands me. Everyone always blames me. I'm the one who's being treated badly." And suddenly, you're comforting them. The person who was hurt is now apologizing. This is called playing the victim. Playing the victim becomes manipulative when someone repeatedly uses their suffering to avoid responsibility or redirect attention away from their actions. Having real struggles doesn't make someone manipulative. The warning sign is the pattern. Every confrontation becomes about their pain, and your feelings disappear from the conversation. Eventually, you may stop speaking up altogether, and sometimes that's when the silence begins. Silent treatment. Imagine sending a message and getting nothing. You call, nothing, hours pass, then a day. You don't know what happened, so you start thinking, did I do something wrong? Should I apologize? Are they angry with me? Sometimes people genuinely need space after an argument. That's normal. But the silent treatment is different when someone repeatedly uses silence to punish you, pressure you, or make you anxious enough to give in. Instead of communicating, they leave you guessing. You replay the argument. You overthink everything you said. And when they finally speak to you again, the relief can feel enormous. Over time, you may become afraid of doing anything that could make them ignore you again. Healthy communication can include taking space, but healthy space eventually comes with communication. Silence shouldn't be used as a weapon. Emotional blackmail. Imagine someone telling you, "If you really love me, you do this." You say no, and suddenly you're selfish. You set a boundary, and suddenly you're hurting them. You make a choice for yourself, and they make you feel responsible for their emotions. This is emotional blackmail. Emotional blackmail is when someone repeatedly uses fear, guilt, or obligation to pressure you into doing what they want. They might make you afraid of losing them. They might make you feel guilty for disappointing them. Or they might remind you of everything they've done for you, so you feel like you owe them something. And slowly, your choices stop being about what you want. They become about avoiding their reaction. That's the real danger. Not simply that someone is upset, but that you begin believing you're responsible for keeping them happy. Remember, one argument doesn't automatically mean manipulation. Everyone makes mistakes. What matters is the pattern. Healthy relationships are built on respect, honesty, communication, and the freedom to say. Because once you understand these patterns, you become much harder to control.